Maya, you still up?
Yeah, I can't sleep. I keep looking at my phone.
She still hasn't responded to your invoice?
Nothing. Just those passive aggressive Instagram posts about snakes and entitled friends. Can you believe that? I'm entitled?
Okay, back up. Start from the beginning. I want to hear the whole thing again.
So, you know Daniel and I got married in Bali in January, right? Destination wedding, we saved for 2 years.
It looked gorgeous.
Thanks. We didn't want to burden our friends with the cost, so we covered their plane tickets and hotels. Each ticket was around $2,000.
That's incredibly generous.
Gemma was one of those people. We've been friends for over 10 years. I covered her completely, and she brought her husband John. She paid for his ticket, but we got her everything.
And they didn't show up to the wedding?
They were in Bali, at the hotel we paid for. They just didn't come to the ceremony or the reception. Nothing.
How is that even possible? You're already there, you're dressed?
I know. When I asked her why, she said since they couldn't afford their own honeymoon, this was a perfect opportunity. And John didn't feel like going to the actual wedding.
He didn't feel like it?
That's what she said.
Maya, I am so angry for you right now. You spent over $2,000 specifically so she could attend your wedding, not for a free vacation.
I keep second guessing myself though. Like, should I just be happy they got a honeymoon?
Absolutely not. She took something of significant value under false pretenses. That's not just rude, that's theft.
That's why I sent her the invoice. I wanted proof if I had to go to court.
Walk me through that message.
I said I was hurt she didn't show up, that I pulled a lot of strings to make sure she could come, and asked if she really thought I paid for the trip just so she could honeymoon with John.
What did she say?
She said, I know the trip was for your wedding, but John didn't want to go because he felt like your wedding ruined the illusion of the trip being our honeymoon and that you'd understand.
Your wedding ruined the illusion?
I couldn't believe it either, so I told her she took advantage of me. That's not what real friends do. And I sent an invoice for $2,387.53. Gave her 30 days.
Maya, I need you to hear something. You are not the villain here. You're not being unreasonable or petty or entitled.
But everyone's going to think I'm suing my friend over a wedding.
You're holding someone accountable for taking thousands of dollars under false pretenses. This isn't about a wedding. It's about basic respect.
I never thought I'd be in this position.
I know, but Gemma counted on you being too nice to do anything about it. And here's the thing. Money shows you who people really are.
We've been through so much together, though. I helped her when her mom was sick, when she lost her job.
How much did you give her then?
Maybe 1,000 over a few months?
Did she pay you back?
No.
When you helped her, did she ever help you when you needed it?
I never really asked.
But did she offer? Check in when you were stressed about money? Take you to dinner after you helped with her rent?
She said thank you.
A real friendship goes both ways. I'm starting to wonder if this has been a pattern longer than just the wedding.
You think she's been using me?
I think maybe you've been so focused on being a good friend that you didn't notice she stopped being one a long time ago.
That hurts to hear, but you're right. She'd only call when she needed something. Cancel plans last minute if something better came up.
There's a difference between keeping score and recognizing when something's one-sided.
So, do I actually take her to small claims court?
Do you want my honest opinion?
Always.
I think you should, and I think you'll win. You have everything documented, her admission in writing, proof of costs, acknowledgement they used it as their personal honeymoon instead.
But what about our friendship?
Maya, is there still a friendship to save?
That's the question I keep asking myself. Part of me wants to believe if I just talk to her, she'll understand and apologize.
And the other part?
Knows that someone who really cared wouldn't have done this in the first place, and definitely wouldn't be posting about me being a snake on Instagram.
Real friends don't play games. They don't take advantage. They don't ghost you when you ask them to be accountable.
Can I tell you what I'm really scared of? That everyone will think I'm being vindictive.
Anyone who knows the full story would understand. You spent over $2,000 so your friend could attend your wedding. She used it for a vacation, then called you entitled. Anyone who thinks you're the bad guy isn't someone whose opinion matters.
You're right. And honestly, those Instagram posts pushed me over the edge. The fact that she could post instead of having a conversation like an adult.
That shows you exactly where her priorities are.
I deserve better than that.
You absolutely do.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to file the small claims case if she doesn't pay in 30 days. No more second guessing.
I'm proud of you, Maya.
Can I ask you something? How do I make sure I don't let this happen again without becoming cynical?
Boundaries. You're not asking people to match you dollar for dollar. You just want basic consideration and reciprocity.
Like what?
Like if you lend money, have a clear agreement about payback. If someone keeps canceling, stop making plans. If someone only reaches out when they need something, notice that pattern.
That sounds simple.
The concept is simple, the execution is hard, especially for people like you who naturally want to help, but practice makes it easier.
Daniel and I are actually working with the financial planner now. We want to build our future on solid ground.
That's really smart.
Yeah, we went over budget on the wedding by like $10,000. We had to dip into savings more than we planned. So getting that $2,000 back would actually really help.
All the more reason to pursue this. That's real money you earned and saved.
I keep trying to minimize it. Like, it's just money. Friendship should be more important.
But this isn't about the money. The money is the symptom. The real issue is she doesn't value you enough to treat you with basic respect.
When you say it like that, I think I've been confusing being a good friend with being a doormat.
That's a really important distinction. You thought if you kept giving, eventually she'd reciprocate, but that's not how it works with takers.
No, takers just keep taking until you stop giving.
Exactly, and you can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm.
Daniel said something similar. He said every time I give money without expecting it back, I'm telling them their needs matter more than our future together.
That's heavy, but he's not wrong.
I was taking money from our wedding fund to help Gemma with rent. He was really upset when I told him.
I bet.
We've set new boundaries now. Neither of us gives more than $100 without discussing it first, and we offer advice instead of cash.
That's really healthy. You can still be supportive without sacrificing your own stability.
It's been a relief, honestly. I didn't realize how much stress I was carrying from feeling like I had to fix everyone's problems.
So, what's the plan for the next 30 days?
Focus on my marriage and our financial health. Rebuild our emergency fund. We want 6 months of expenses saved. And I'm using this budgeting app to track spending better.
Look at you, taking control.
I'm also going to start saying no more often to expensive dinners I can't afford, buying rounds for everyone, donating to every fundraiser on social media.
Those donations add up.
I must have donated to 20 things last year. Just felt guilty saying no.
So, what changed? Why are you ready to say no now?
The Gemma situation was my wake-up call. I finally saw the end result of always putting others first. Resentment, financial stress, almost couldn't afford my own wedding.
When you say it all out loud.
I know, it sounds crazy, but I'm done being the person everyone comes to when they need something, but who never feels like she can ask for anything herself. I'm scared, though. What if people stop liking me when I set boundaries?
Then they weren't really your friends. Real friends respect boundaries. Quality over quantity. I'd rather have 5 real friends than 50 fake ones.
That's true. And I realized Gemma never actually asked how I was doing. I went through our texts. It's all her problems, her life. When I mentioned something I was dealing with, she changed the subject.
That's devastating to see.
It is. But it's also clarifying. I'm not crazy. The friendship really was as unbalanced as I felt. Now, when I doubt myself, I can look at those messages and remember.
Are you keeping them for court?
Yeah, my brother-in-law's a lawyer. He said I have a strong case and to save everything.
That must be reassuring.
It really is. You know what I'm going to do with that money if she pays? Split it. Half to emergency fund, half to take Daniel on a trip. He's been so patient and supportive.
That's beautiful. He's a good one.
He really is. I'm realizing how lucky I am to have married someone who actually shows up for me. I think I'm ready to let go now. Of Gemma. Of the friendship we had. Of the person I thought she was.
That's big, Maya.
I'm tired of carrying this weight, of wondering if I did something wrong. She made her choices and now I'm making mine. I'm done investing energy in people who don't invest in me.
I'm proud of you. You've handled this with so much grace.
I don't know about grace. I've cried, been angry, second-guessed myself 1,000 times.
That's all part of the process. Grace means showing up and doing the work even when it's hard.
Well then, I guess I'm graceful after all.
You are, and you're going to come out of this so much stronger.
Welcome to The Debate. Today, we are dissecting a social fracture that sits right at the very uncomfortable intersection of generosity, entitlement, and the unspoken contracts of friendship. We are looking at the invoice.
It is a fascinating and frankly a pretty cringe-inducing case study. So we have a bride, Maya, who sent an invoice for $2,387.53 to her friend Gemma.
Right, and just to set the stage for our listeners, this wasn't a bill for, a spilled glass of wine or a torn dress. Maya paid for Gemma's flights and hotel to attend her destination wedding in Bali. Gemma accepted the trip, flew to Bali, stayed in the paid-for accommodation, but then failed to attend the wedding ceremony itself.
And that is where the conflict lies. I mean, Maya views this as a breach of contract, justifying a financial penalty. But there is another side to this, one that suggests this invoice is less about justice and more about a fundamental misunderstanding of what a gift actually is between friends.
I'm representing the position that this was a gross abuse of generosity. When you accept a paid trip to a wedding, your attendance is the condition of the gift. Skipping the event to use the trip as a personal honeymoon is, quite frankly, theft masked as friendship.
And I come at it from a different angle. I will be arguing that the gift of a trip, once given, is, well, legally and socially ambiguous. By reducing a friendship to a transactional invoice, regardless of how rude Gemma's behavior was, we are seeing a failure to understand the unconditional nature of social support. We're seeing the commodification of a relationship.
So let's get right into our position statements. I want to be very precise here. Maya, the bride, explicitly covered these costs, over $2,000 per ticket plus hotels, so that her friends could be present for her marriage. This was not a lottery win, it was logistical support for a specific event. Gemma and her husband, John, were physically present in Bali. They were in the hotel room that Maya paid for.
That fact is undisputed. Yeah.
Yet they did not show up. They didn't have food poisoning, they didn't have a family emergency. The reasoning provided was that John didn't feel like going and that they wanted to use the time for their own honeymoon. This transforms the nature of the transaction. Maya essentially subsidized a luxury vacation for a couple that refused to walk down the hall to celebrate her. That is why I support the invoice. It isn't vindictive. It's an attempt to recoup losses from a fraudulent acceptance of a conditional gift. It is a necessary tool for accountability in the face of exploitation.
I see why you characterize it that way, but let me offer the counter-narrative. You are using words like transaction, conditional, and fraud. These are market terms applied to a social relationship. My argument is that once a gift is handed over, the donor effectively loses control over how it is used. Gemma's perspective, however flawed it might seem to you, was that this trip was a perfect opportunity for a honeymoon she and John could not otherwise afford.
An opportunity paid for by the bride.
Correct, but look at the psychology revealed in the text message Gemma sent. She said the wedding ruined the illusion of the trip being their private honeymoon. This suggests that for Gemma, the primary value of this gift was the vacation experience, the escape, the romance. She likely viewed Maya's generosity not as a ticket to an event, but as a holistic blessing on her life. She thought Maya, as a close friend, would understand that Gemma's need for this honeymoon experience outweighed the formality of the ceremony. The invoice signals that Maya views the friendship as a ledger, whereas Gemma, perhaps naively, viewed it as a bond where her happiness would be a priority to Maya.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because it effectively infantilizes Gemma, treating her like a child who doesn't understand cause and effect. But let's move into the core debate. I want to drill down on this definition of the gift. You're suggesting that because Maya gave the money, Gemma was free to define what that money was for.
In a sense, yes. This touches on a concept in behavioral economics known as the distinction between market norms and social norms. When you invite a friend to dinner, you don't expect them to pay you for the ingredients. That's a social norm. When you buy a service, you pay a specific price. That's a market norm. By sending an invoice, Maya is retroactively trying to apply market norms to what was established as a social interaction.
But see, I would argue that the social norm here implies a covenant. If I buy you dinner, the payment is your company and your conversation. If I buy you a steak and you take the steak, put it in a doggy bag, and leave immediately to go eat it with someone else, you have violated the social contract. Maya paid $2,000 for a plane ticket. The destination was the wedding. The hotel was the wedding venue. This wasn't a vacation package just dropped in Gemma's lap. It was logistical infrastructure.
But was it purely infrastructure? We have to look at how Gemma received it. Gemma is clearly in a different financial bracket than Maya. She couldn't afford a honeymoon. When a wealthy friend says, "I'll fly you to Bali," it is very easy for the recipient, especially when prone to what we might call egocentric bias, to interpret that as, "I want you to have this experience." The illusion comment is crucial here. Gemma and John were caught up in the fantasy of the trip. To them, the wedding became an intrusion on the gift rather than the purpose of it.
Then a staggering amount of entitlement. The wedding ruined the illusion. The wedding was the reality. The honeymoon was the illusion. By prioritizing her illusion over the actual event she was flown there to attend, Gemma is admitting to deception. She is admitting that she valued the funded lifestyle more than the friend providing it. And the excuse that John didn't feel like going, that implies they viewed the funding as a grant. A no-strings-attached grant for their leisure.
Or, to play devil's advocate for a moment, it implies that they felt the friendship was intimate enough to withstand a change in plans. You call it deception, I call it a misalignment of expectations. Gemma likely assumed that Maya's wealth meant the money didn't matter as much as the gesture. If Maya has the resources to fly people to Bali, Gemma might assume, Maya just wants us here, enjoying ourselves. It's a classic case of the rich friend dilemma, where the receiver assumes the cost is negligible to the giver.
But that is factually incorrect in this case. Maya explicitly stated she saved for 2 years for this. This wasn't pocket change. It was hard-earned capital.
Gemma might not have fully grasped that reality. In her mind, the gift was the opportunity to be in Bali. Once she was there, she made a choice to maximize her own happiness, her honeymoon, under the assumption that a true friend would want her to seize that moment. It's rude, yes. It is selfish, absolutely. But does it warrant a bill? Sending a bill suggests the friendship is always conditional on Gemma performing the role of wedding guest exactly as scripted.
It suggests the friendship was conditional on mutual respect. You can't separate the money from the respect in this specific instance, which brings me to the second point, the pattern of behavior. We aren't just looking at one weekend in Bali. The source material reveals a long history here. This wasn't an isolated incident.
Right. Context is always important. What does the history tell us?
Maya has a history of financially supporting Gemma. She gave her roughly $1,000 previously when Gemma's mom was sick and when she lost her job. Maya even dipped into her own wedding fund to help Gemma with rent. This is a crucial detail. Maya was sacrificing her own wedding budget to keep a roof over Gemma's head.
That is generous, certainly. It establishes Maya as the giver in the dynamic.
And what was the return? Zero. Gemma never paid Maya back. She never treated her to dinner. She only called when she needed something.
This context proves that the Bali incident wasn't a misunderstanding of a gift. It was the climax of a predator-prey relationship. Gemma is a taker. She saw another resource, the Bali trip, and she consumed it, just like she consumed the rent money.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that predator framing entirely. You are looking at friendship through a ledger, counting pennies and keeping score. That destroys relationships. If you help a friend, you help them because you care, not because you are building a line of credit to be called in later.
Reciprocity is not keeping score. It's the heartbeat of any healthy relationship. If the flow is 100% one way, that's not a friendship. That's patronage.
But look at Maya's own admission. She told Sophie, her confidant, that she never really asked for help or repayment. Maya set the precedent. She established a dynamic where she was the provider and Gemma was the receiver. If you spend years giving money unconditionally, you teach your friends that your financial aid is a permanent safety net. You create a dependency.
So Maya is to blame for Gemma's theft because she was too generous in the past? That sounds like victim blaming.
No, but Maya is responsible for the dynamic she helped create. If I have a friend who always picks up the check and never asks for a dime back, and then suddenly one day hands me a bill because I didn't act the way she wanted, I would be shocked. Gemma might view the financial disparity as something Maya absorbs because she can. It's an implicit social contract. Maya pays, Gemma accepts. Maya changed that contract unilaterally with the invoice.
But this isn't about ability to pay. It's about the emotional labor. Gemma never asked how Maya was doing. The texts were all about Gemma's problems. That is the definition of a parasitic relationship.
And that is a failing in Gemma's character, I agree. But let's look at it from the perspective of friendship support. To Gemma, real friendship might mean that emotional needs, like the need for a honeymoon to strengthen her own struggling marriage, should outweigh immediate financial repayment or strict adherence to a schedule. If Gemma is struggling and Maya is thriving, Gemma might feel that the supportive thing for Maya to do is let her have this honeymoon. By focusing on the money, the rent, the $1,000, the flight costs, Maya is retroactively changing the rules. She is saying, I kept track of all of it, and now you owe me.
She is saying, I supported you when you were down, and you couldn't support me on the most important day of my life. That's not changing the rules. That's enforcing a baseline of humanity. Which leads us to the fallout, the invoice.
The nuclear option.
The necessary option. Maya tried to talk to Gemma. She asked why she didn't show up. Gemma gave that ridiculous illusion excuse and then ghosted. When someone refuses to engage in conversation, you have to speak a language they understand. The invoice was that language. And look at Gemma's reaction posting on Instagram about snakes and entitled friends.
That reaction proves my point, actually.
How? It proves she's gaslighting Maya. She is projecting her own behavior onto the person she hurt.
No, it proves that Gemma genuinely feels wronged. The accusation of entitlement suggests that Gemma is shocked that Maya would lord her financial power over her. In Gemma's eyes, a friend doesn't act like a debt collector. The invoice transforms the relationship from a social bond into a small claims court case. It strips away all the history and reduces it to a dollar figure. It's a form of humiliation.
But the history was the dollar figure. Maya and her husband went $10,000 over budget. They need to rebuild their savings. This isn't play money. Gemma's post about entitled friends is pure psychological projection. She felt entitled to Maya's money, Maya's wedding venue, and Maya's silence. She wanted the benefits of the friendship without the obligations.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered that the invoice validates Gemma's feeling that the friendship was transactional? By sending a formal demand for payment, Maya is confirming that the gift always had strings attached. It signals to Gemma, you were only valuable to me as a prop at my wedding, and since you didn't perform, you have to pay.
It signals you cost me money and gave me nothing in return, not even respect.
But that's the risk of gifts. If you give a gift expecting a specific return, even if that return is just attendance, it's not really a gift. It's a wage. Maya paid Gemma's way, and when Gemma didn't work the shift at the wedding, Maya docked her pay. That is the logic of an employer, not a friend.
If I buy you a coffee, I can't demand the money back if you don't listen to my story.
But if you buy me a coffee specifically so we can discuss a project and I take the coffee and run out the door, you have a right to be angry. This is the logic of someone who is done being a doormat. The source material mentions Maya is working with a financial planner now, trying to build a future on solid ground. She realized that by not asking for repayment, she was putting Gemma's needs above her own marriage. The invoice is an act of reclaiming her own agency.
It is certainly an act of finality. It burns the bridge.
And frankly, it's justified. If Gemma had just apologized, maybe. But to take the trip, skip the wedding, and then badmouth the bride on social media, that destroys any benefit of the doubt regarding the ambiguity of the gift.
I will concede that the social media posts were immature, but I still maintain that the invoice was a category error. You handle bad friends by ending the friendship, not by billing them. When you bill a friend, you are admitting that the relationship was a business deal all along. It commodifies the intimacy.
Or you are admitting that the friendship is over and you are simply closing out the accounts.
Perhaps, but it leaves a bitter taste. It suggests that Maya's generosity was never truly about the person, but about the event. It suggests the guests were props.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it differently. Maya's generosity was about the person at the event. She wanted her friend there. The friend took the resources and discarded the obligation.
And the friend took the resources and embraced the opportunity for happiness, assuming the donor would be happy for them. It is a clash of worldviews. One views the trip as a contract, the other views it as a windfall.
A windfall that cost the donor $2,387.
A high price for a lesson in boundaries, to be sure.
Let's look at the resolution proposed in the material. Maya is prepared to go to small claims court. She has the text saved, she has the receipts. Her brother-in-law, a lawyer, says she has a strong case.
And she likely does. Legally speaking, contracts can be verbal or implied by conduct, but socially, spiritually, is suing a former best friend really the path to healing?
Socially, she is moving on. She is realizing that quality over quantity matters. She would rather have 5 real friends than 50 fake ones who use her. That is a vital life lesson.
That is a healthy realization. But I worry that pursuing this in court will only deepen the cynicism. It turns a heartbreak into a lawsuit. It keeps her tethered to Gemma, just through a different mechanism, the court system rather than the friendship.
It turns a loss into a recovery. She plans to put half that money into her emergency fund and half toward a trip with her husband, Daniel, the person who actually shows up for her. That is a poetic justice, taking the money wasted on a fake friend and investing it in a real partner. It's a reallocation of resources to where they are valued.
I can't argue with the result, even if I disagree with the method. It is a very pragmatic way to scrub the slate clean.
So, bringing this to a close, we have a broken friendship, a significant debt, and 2 very different ways of viewing the social contract.
Indeed. While I maintain that Gemma's actions were selfish, I hold to the belief that Maya's shift to transactional accounting, the invoice, marks the definitive death of the friendship. It's a tragedy, really. Perhaps the lesson here is that mixing large sums of money with friendship inevitably leads to ruined illusions on both sides. Once money changes hands, the ambiguity that allows friendships to breathe often suffocates.
I see why you emphasize that, but I have to land on the side of accountability. Boundaries are necessary for mental and financial health. The invoice isn't just about the money. It's a valid attempt to reclaim agency from a relationship that was entirely one-sided. Maya is validating her own worth by refusing to be exploited.
And she is certainly entitled to that validation. It's a hard way to learn that some friends are only there for the fair weather or the free vacation.
Exactly. This situation illustrates the complex intersection of money, expectations, and the definition of loyalty. It forces us to ask, do we have friends or do we have dependents?
And it forces us to ask, when we give to our friends, what are we really expecting in return? And are we clear about those expectations before we hand over the credit card? Because if we aren't, we might end up sending an invoice.
And if the expectation is simply show up and they can't even do that, maybe they shouldn't have the credit card in the first place.
A fair point.
We want to encourage our listeners to evaluate their own boundaries and friendships.
Are you the giver or the taker? And are you okay with the balance?
And if you are the giver, are you giving a gift or are you paying a wage? Know the difference before you book the flight.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening to The Debate.
Until next time.
This story is for entertainment purposes only. This is not financial, legal, or professional advice. For legal matters, consult an attorney. For financial guidance, consult a certified financial professional. Remember, you deserve relationships built on mutual respect. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for your well-being.